Hey everybody, Nate Eaton here at a beautiful Boise Park on a somewhat cloudy, rainy day, and I'm here with juror number 9 from Chad Daybell's case. Nick, how you feeling today?
Today I'm feeling mixed emotions, really. I mean, we're done with the trial. It's over. I'm getting back into normal life this week, and yeah, mixed feelings.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. What I remember about you is that you actually missed the day you were supposed to show up for jury selection.
I did.
But you were noble enough to come back. It's not like a warrant was issued for your arrest. So your alarm didn't go off. What happened that day?
Yeah, so I somehow forgot to plug in my phone, which I use for my alarm, and so it didn't go off. It didn't wake me up, and I woke up naturally at around 9 a.m. and we're supposed to be there at 9:30, and so I'm kind of panicking, trying to get ready, and also I called the jury commissioner to explain the situation, and they said, "All right, hold on a minute. We'll get Randy on the phone, the jury commissioner," and so they said just wait, and they called me back, and he kind of asked me what happened. I felt like I was, in trouble in school again, but they had me come down to the courthouse and wait a bit, see what the judge wanted to do. So I waited there. It turns out they started without me. They didn't want to wait any longer, which is totally understandable.
Yeah.
But
you came in the next day.
Yeah, they had me come in the next day.
Yeah.
And I just went in with that small group.
What's interesting to me about that whole story is that you ended up making the jury.
Yeah.
And out of all of the people that were questioned, you made it. You advanced.
Yeah. I thought that they might excuse me for that, but obviously they didn't. They kept me.
What did you know about this case before jury selection?
Really, nothing. I mean, I vaguely remember something happening in East Idaho, but that's it. I'd never heard the names to my memory, nothing.
And then you go in, and the first day of opening statements, and they're starting to talk about money, power, and sex, and what Chad and Lori did, and what were you thinking when all of this is coming out and you're hearing it for the first time?
I mean, this is big. What is going on here? Yeah, going in, I definitely thought I was just going to be like a onesie-twosie case, and I'd be done in the week. Hearing some of the more details about it, yeah, I'm going to be here a while if I'm selected.
And what were the next? How would you describe the next 8 weeks of being in that courtroom every day? That's a big question, I know, but overall description.
It did kind of change throughout the experience. Because at first, nobody knows what's going on, what's expected of us exactly, or you're in a new situation, you got to figure it out. What do I do here? So at first, everyone's kind of feeling it out, and we're taking notes and all that. It's but you kind of get into a groove of things after a while, and it becomes more routine, and kind of feel like you get better at it.
Was there a witness or a moment where you said, okay, he's guilty? Or was it just an accumulation over the weeks?
Yeah. At first it's just you're trying to figure out what's going on. You know nothing about what's happened, and slowly more and more details come out, and but there was one witness, Zulema, who I could not stop writing, and they dismissed us, and I was still writing, and I kept writing in the jury room after that. That was a lot. So probably around there, I was really thinking this is going to be hard to take the rest of it impartially.
What was it about what she said? Do you remember?
So that's when a lot of the details about
the castings.
Yeah, and the more of the ratings, the dark ratings, all that stuff came out.
And she had notes. She kept a journal, and they showed that to you all.
Yeah, that was That was very interesting too, to see the drawings, the levels of ratings explained a little more, especially because that was kind of confusing to me at first when it was brought up.
What about a witness that, did any of them make you emotional or really kind of get in your head like, oh, I'm never going to forget that?
I mean, there were multiple. Some that stick out are Kay Woodcock, JJ's grandmother, and Colby Ryan. Yeah, that was a tough one. His impact statement as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying that the victim impact statements for the death penalty phase before you all started, that was heavy.
Very, very. Yeah, going back into that room, I don't know, at least half of us were still teary-eyed or straight up crying. That was rough.
What was it like sitting direct? The way the courtroom's set up is that the jurors were on one side and you faced Chad Daybell.
Yeah.
You had a perfect shot of him. What was that like, viewing him every day and seeing his kind of non-responsiveness to most things?
It was strange. I will say in the beginning, the first week or two, I tried not to look at him too much. Just trying to just hear the story, hear the facts, and not necessarily. I didn't want to connect it to him right away. Trying to remain impartial. But later on, some of the stuff that was said, he just completely stone-faced, or at times he would shake his head, like no, like if something was said about something he taught or something that he didn't agree with, obviously. Yeah.
Was it hard to keep track of all of the names and all of the places and the timeline?
At first, yeah, definitely. I mean, there was so many names, and it was kind of like it was everywhere. The story was everywhere. But as more witnesses came and told their story, their perspective, it kind of started coming together. We took notes on the names, so that was something.
The two Melanies. I know a lot of people are like, wait, which Melanie is which? And,
yeah.
But not only in this case do you have their names, they have alternate names for many of them, and sometimes 2 or 3 alternate names. So not only do you have to track their real names, but their alternate names. But do you think the prosecution did a good job kind of explaining it and referencing who meant who?
Yes, definitely. They always came back and referred to them and asked the witnesses, like, so just to be clear, Chad was known as James and all that stuff. And, also all the demon names were, there's a lot of those too, attached to people. So that was confusing at first as well. But again, they kind of kept asking about it, and so it was easier to understand as it went.
I've been told that if you took this script to Hollywood for this story, they would say you need to tone it down. This is not believable. Like, it's too far out there. What were your thoughts when all of the religious stuff started to come into play, and the dark and the light and the zombies and the spirits and the names?
The religious stuff, yeah. Well, at first, so I was raised Mormon, and so I'm pretty familiar with their typical beliefs. And so when I started hearing about the other stuff that Chad was saying, teaching, talking about, it's like, well, that's not right. You knew
it wasn't familiar to you,
right? Yeah.
Do you think there were any members of the jury that thought that might be the mainstream Mormon belief, or if you live in Idaho long enough, do you realize that that's not what they teach? That's not what's being held at church.
Maybe some of the minor stuff. I mean, I don't think anybody believed that Mormons are all out there rating people dark and all that stuff. Talking with the other jurors, a lot of them are familiar with Mormons, and they have friends who are LDS, and so the minor stuff, the details of the actual beliefs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the defense? Did that change your mind? Did that do anything different? Were you waiting for more from the defense?
You know, I definitely was waiting for more. He, at certain points, there were points that brought up that I thought, yeah, that's true, technically. Like, that could have happened that way. But at other points, it seemed like he was just trying to confuse us or get us off track. And I think most of us saw through that.
Let's talk about the day that Chad's kids testified. What were your thoughts about that?
That was really interesting. I mean, I was anticipating that day for a while, and as well as, the gallery was full. Like, everybody wanted to hear from them, what they had to say. And it felt weird. Like, I don't know how much of their stories I believe. Well, obviously with the verdict, like, we didn't believe them fully. It was, it felt robotic with Emma, and Mr. Pryor made sure to say that he never coached her, but it sounded coached by somebody to me. I don't know.
Maybe her dad?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, they were talking every day.
Did any of the defense witnesses make any difference? Make you think, that's a good point?
Yeah, at first. Definitely on his direct examination, because he has his own questions that he's going to ask. Though also at points they had testimony that I thought helped the prosecution more, and as well as throughout his cross-examinations with them as well. But yeah, once the prosecution did their cross-examination with his expert witnesses, it kind of cleared things up. Like, they didn't have all the information. They didn't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what was the thought about Tammy's death? That seemed to be a big focus of the prosecution, trying to prove that Chad Daybell killed her, especially because, the other two kids, they're buried on his property.
Right.
It's really close to him. But Tammy, and the defense also brought up repeatedly that she was in poor health. Was that hard to come to a decision?
Yes and no. At first, it was a little difficult to determine just how healthy she was or wasn't, and well, the coroner at her death, she ruled it as probably natural, and I think that if the kids weren't ever found, or if they weren't even missing to begin with, I think he would have gotten away with that.
John Pryor had a doctor also testify who said she didn't believe Tammy died of asphyxiation.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the experts he brought in that we learned later that didn't have all of the extra stuff.
Yeah, Lindsay Blake went through the list. Did you review this? No. Did you review this? No. And Pryor objected, and the judge sustained it until Lindsay Blake said, "Your Honor, the medical examiner in Utah reviewed all of these things."
Yeah.
And then he let her continue.
She's an amazing prosecutor. Yeah, she it was really cool to hear her work.
Once you had the case and you went back into the jury room, you guys received it on Wednesday afternoon, and you were also sequestered. So let me back up a minute. What did you know about sequestration? Like, what were you told? Bring a suitcase?
Yeah. So they had us prepare for a week's worth, and honestly, I was prepared mentally to be there for 1 to 2 weeks, maybe longer. I had no idea where everybody else was at. This is my first time on jury duty, so I didn't know what to expect at all, really, personally. But they had us, they took our cell phones that day, and they said we're not going to be able to hang out in each other's rooms after hanging out every day for 7 weeks.
So you're all taken to a hotel.
Yeah.
You're on one floor, just the jurors on the floor?
It was mostly just the jurors. We did find out there were some of the public on our floor, but we never saw them. They're on the other end of the building.
Right. And there's the bailiffs and deputies that are on the floor, like in the hallway?
Yes. Yeah, so some of them stayed at the hotel with us, slept there, and others would just show up there to do their duty.
So you're in your room. You can't have the TV, right?
Right. So no television, but we did have a DVD player, so we could watch approved movies and series.
The judge had to approve everything.
Everything.
Even books.
Even books. Any music that we wanted, like all entertainment had to go through him.
Do you know, was anything denied?
Yes. I'm not sure specifically, but I know that anything that had to do with court or like any true crime type of shows like that those weren't allowed.
Wow. So you give a list to the judge of what you want. You can't have TV, you don't have your phone. You can't go into excuse me. You can't go into the other jurors' rooms.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, what do you do, Lane? Go to sleep all day? I mean, what did you do?
I mean, luckily we were busy for the better part of the day. So
at the courthouse.
At the courthouse. Yeah. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to suffer in silence or or anything like that. But I ended up reading a little bit. I started a crossword puzzle, some Sudoku. But then, I mean, you're tired from the day, so you just try to get some sleep and be refreshed for the next day.
You told me earlier you ironed your clothes.
I did.
Gotta look nice. You couldn't deliberate at the hotel, right?
Right. Yeah. No.
You had to be in the jury room.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Wednesday. When you left the courthouse Wednesday, did you all have your minds made up for the guilt phase?
I think we did. I certainly did. Especially because we all agreed on the points, but we did make sure to talk them through one by one, and we did review the evidence if we weren't certain on dates and time periods, stuff like that. But we were all pretty much decided.
And then Thursday you came back and really started to deliberate.
Yeah.
And what was that like once you reached this decision, guilty on all counts? Was it like everybody raise your hand?
Because we were all sort of in agreement already, we went around the room on each count, and we went like, "Do you agree? Yes. You? Yes. Yes. Yes." All throughout, each one of us.
Were there ever some no's?
On the guilt part, nothing.
Nothing.
Wow. We were convinced.
So there wasn't really much heated argument.
No.
It was all yes.
No. Yeah, there was discussion about different parts of it, but yeah.
So then you tell the bailiff we're ready?
Yeah. So we knock on the door, they unlock it and open it, and our foreperson said, "We have a verdict." And I remember his face. He just kind of like blankly looked at us and said, "Okay, here we go." Like, I'll give it to the judge.
And I'll tell you, I was in the courtroom, and that same bailiff maybe or another one poked his head out the door, and he called to another bailiff, and he's like, "Hey, come here now." And I was sitting next to a producer, and we looked at each other like, and then the judge's clerk left, and they shut the door. And then a couple of minutes later, Kay Woodcock was in the courtroom, and because the victims get notified first, she yelled, "We have a verdict." And then there was just this buzz and it was going to be announced in, I don't remember, 20 or 30 minutes. So what was it like walking in the courtroom? I mean, what were you thinking when they're about to read this verdict? You know something that only 12 people know until the judge has shown it.
Yeah, that was intense. Walking in, throughout the trial, you could feel the eyes on you from the gallery, but at that moment, it felt like nobody wasn't looking at you. Like, it was intense, and my heart rate started going. Like, we all sat down, and again, like you said, we all knew. Nobody else knew, and it takes a while for it to actually be said. So there was, I guess, even a little bit of anxiety leading up to that, just waiting for it, and to watch for reactions.
Did you watch Chad during that moment?
I did. Yeah, he remained the same as he did the whole trial, just Nothing. No reaction. Very neutral.
So the verdict's announced, guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have to go into the sentencing phase, and you all have to determine if Chad Daybell is going to get life in prison or the death penalty. But that didn't start until the next day with the witnesses.
Right.
So you all go back to the hotel, and what was the mood like amongst you, and even for you, knowing that, okay, the big decision's coming now?
Yeah. So actually, that day, since we were between deliberation phases, the judge did allow us to reconnect with the alternates that we've been separated from this whole time. And we got to go to a park, and we had dinner at the park, and we just got some fresh air, took a walk.
With the bailiffs?
Yeah, with the bailiffs, yeah. So that was really cool to be able to do, kind of a break. And then after that, we got to go to the pool at the hotel. I went to the gym, and then we all watched half of a movie because we had a bedtime. We had to be back in our rooms at 10 o'clock.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Did you have a awake time?
Yeah. So we got a knock on our door at 6 a.m. To get ready to go, an hour and a half. So we left at 7:30.
And breakfast was brought to your room?
No. So the original plan was we're going to be able to cook in our rooms, have our own breakfast if we wanted. But that was changed, and we ended up going to the courthouse and eating there.
Oh, okay. And lunches and dinners too at the courthouse?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So lunch is definitely, the dinner was, we could have eaten wherever, at the hotel or the courthouse, but since we decided to stay and deliberate, we had dinner there.
At the courthouse?
At the courthouse.
So then the witness phase starts, and you mentioned that earlier that was probably the most emotional part of the trial?
Yeah, for me, definitely. I was not prepared for that at all. I mean, I knew it was coming, but I didn't really think about it, and just the emotion filled the room. I teared up. I know a lot of the other jurors did too, and it was a lot. It was tough.
You mentioned Kay and Colby really sticking out.
Yeah. Especially Colby's statement, I'm motherless, I'm fatherless, sisterless and brotherless. Ooh.
Yeah.
Hurts.
And then you go back to deliberate again.
Yeah.
And this one was more challenging than the guilt.
Definitely. It's the big one. Personally, I had trouble starting it.
You said you wanted to maybe take a break, maybe start the next day.
Yeah, and we did take a few minutes to just relax, breathe, get ready. And then the discussion started, and we had a job to do, and we started doing it.
We have some really noisy ducks here, but Tammy Daybell loved ducks. I don't know if you knew that. She loved birds. And this whole trial, ducks seem to find people associated with it. So there's 3 ducks here. Maybe there's some message from the other side. I don't know if you can read into that, but hopefully they don't mess up our sound. I don't think they will. So you go back into the jury room, and was this another go around the room and everybody says what they think, like yes, no, yes, no?
Yeah. I mean, we started it similar to how we started the guilt phase, where we read through the instructions and kind of started talking about it. Again, we took it line by line for the instruction and gave our thoughts and talked about what we remembered, and I got through it.
Was there anyone that needed to be convinced on this part?
I mean, a little bit. And I don't want to say too much on his,
Right.
on his issue with it, but for the most part, again, we're all in agreement that, what we had to do.
Right. And then when it comes time to announce that, you're back out in the courtroom.
Before then, after we'd all decided, we'd all voted, there was a moment of silence that was it was the loudest silence I've ever heard. We're just all looking at each other, and I'm like, well, this is it. It's done.
before you go out into the courtroom.
Yeah. The verdict paper is marked. We're ready. This is it. But yeah, so we go into the courtroom, and still a little nervousness. Not quite as much for me as the guilt verdict, but yeah, still jittery a little bit.
Did you look at Chad again this time?
I did.
Any change in reaction?
I thought I noticed a little bit, kind of like maybe a mouth twitch, but for the most part, yeah, just neutral again. Yeah.
He didn't stand at the end for you all, for the jury, and I don't know if that's because he was told not to. There's been two trains of thought from amongst a lot of people of he was told to sit and not stand, or he was restrained to the ground, or he was not standing out of defiance, I guess, to your decision. Did you notice that he didn't stand?
I didn't notice. As soon as we're told to stand, it's like, oh, time to leave. So I'm focused on just getting out, like what's the next thing we're doing,
right.
That kind of thing.
And what did you do? You all walk back into the jury room and say goodbye? Is that?
Yeah, it's almost a bittersweet moment where you've just spent the last 2 months of your life with these people who you're kind of forced to be friends with in a good way. Like, they're all great people. Yeah, it's really great to be able to meet all of them. But you're just kind of thinking, oh, it's over now. Back to normal life, getting back into it.
It was a jury that seemed to get along. You all got along?
Oh, yeah. Everyone is. It was a little awkward at first. We're all strangers, but before we knew it, we're all making jokes and laughing and talking about, just everything. Camping, all of our interests.
Was it hard to not go back into the room and talk the trial during breaks?
Definitely at points, especially if something especially interesting came up. Usually when we went back, there were a few minutes of silence because you're so focused on what's happening there, and that's on your mind, and you can't talk about it. But eventually, we all get talking again.
Was it hard to go home every day and not talk about it with your friends, your families, not call anybody?
A little bit. I never wanted to tell anybody. Last thing I want is a mistrial. I did get a few questions from people who knew I was on the jury, but they were very respectful when I said, I can't talk about it. So,
What are your overall thoughts on the judge?
The judge, he seems like really just a great guy, and honestly a very, very good judge. He's always very professional, very calm in his demeanor, and he did come talk to us afterwards, and that was. I think it meant a lot to me. He shook each of our hands and thanked us for our service. And, this has been his life for the last 4 years. And so he was invested, and it was great.
Your thoughts on the prosecution?
The prosecution, they did a great job. There's a lot of confusing parts to this case, and they were able to lay it out in a way that eventually made sense, and they did great,
What about the defense?
The defense had a hard job. He did what he could with what he had, I thought. A lot of people. Well, never mind. I don't want to get into that, but yeah.
Did what he could with what you heard, and there's a lot of evidence against his client.
Yeah.
A lot of witnesses against his client. I think it was 67.
Yeah, quite a few. But I think he did a good job.
Your overall thoughts on the bailiffs, the security, the people that you had to work with every day, behind the scenes and in the courtroom?
The bailiffs were amazing. They even as far back as jury selection, they were cracking jokes, trying to get us more comfortable, because it is a very strange, like, uncomfortable situation. You're in the room with a bunch of strangers, and you don't know what's going on. You're just like, well, what am I doing? Like, what? And you're just waiting a lot of time too. They don't tell you exactly when you're going to go in, because honestly, they don't know either. It's a long process, but they are helping us out throughout that, and they kind of set the tone for what would be the rest of our time together. Kind of relaxed and having a good time, making the best of our situation while we were outside of court. And they were very serious, very professional inside court.
Could you, during the breaks, get on your phones? And you could take your phone home with you at night, right?
Oh, yeah, all the way up until we were sequestered. Yeah.
But you couldn't, you had to sign an affirmation every morning that you didn't watch the news or anything like that.
Yep.
Did you, after the trial was over, go home and start looking up, Googling Chad Daybell, Lori Vallow?
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel strongly connected to this whole thing now, being a part of it. And so I was trying to learn a lot more about it,
Right.
Yeah.
Have you been in touch with other jurors? I know it's only been like 2 days, but you all, it seems like, formed a pretty close bond, or most of you at least.
Oh, yeah. We've got a group chat going, and we all sent messages to each other in this chat saying, like, it's great to serve with you, and in this weird situation, but yeah, and we're all planning on meeting up again soon.
You were probably the youngest juror on there, right?
Possibly, at least one of three.
Oh.
There was another juror my age, and I think one that was younger than us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And you all have different phases of life. I mean, I'm sure there were grandparents on there.
Oh, yeah.
And parents,
Yeah.
young parents, older parents,
Mm-hmm.
or more mature parents, I'll say. And then young men like you. And so to have this random group come together and agree on something, has it taught you anything or made you appreciate the legal system even more here in the United States?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we were all sort of on the same page already, but we did have discussions where there were disagreements, and we were able to talk through it and reach a verdict. They were all very, again, just great people. Yeah, it was my first experience in this situation, so I hope most juries are like that one. Yeah.
Would
great.
you serve again?
Yeah, I would.
Hopefully you don't ever have a case just like this, but...
Yeah, well, yeah, I hope not. I assume it would be, something a little less so, a one-day civil trial or something, I don't know.
Right, yeah, 1 or 2 day bounced check or something.
Yeah, hopefully.
I have to ask you this, I know we spoke about it earlier off camera, but in the audience, we would watch you all closely, and the day you shaved your mustache, there was discussion. He shaved his mustache. There was also discussion when Lindsay Blake cut her hair. I mean, you're all in this environment together, and if you're there regularly, you notice these changes. We noticed what the jurors would wear, their different outfits, and we would discuss like, oh, so-and-so. So you just do anything more on the mustache for the people that are wondering?
I mean, yeah, I didn't really think about it that much about the impact it would have on the people watching, but one of the other jurors said that a friend contacted him and asked if he shaved because this friend of his had been listening to a podcast, and they mentioned this mustache man that no longer had a mustache, and I thought that was wild. Like,
Yeah.
like it made me realize, yeah, they're watching us maybe closer than I thought.
Right.
But yeah, no, I don't normally have a mustache, honestly. I just decided to try and grow one this year, and after 5-6 months or so, I decided, well, no more mustache.
And off it came, and it got people talking. I think, too, because you were on the end of the back row, everybody, noticed you, and then it was a change. On the flip side, did you notice people in the gallery? Did you pay attention to the people that were coming every day?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was, after seeing these people every day, like, you get to know faces, and you see, oh, they sat over here this time, or oh, like, who is that? Like, you're trying to figure that out.
What would you say was your overall takeaway from this?
You know, it's a very important part of our system, and it can take a long time, as we found. But it is important to get everything straight on the record, and it takes everyone to do their best to try and figure out the truth and reach justice if that's the case.
What was it like the day that they showed the autopsy photos? A couple of days they showed them. It wasn't just one day.
Yeah, it was rough. It was rough. I will say I was able to kind of be in fact-seeking mode, so kind of put my emotion to the side and just try to figure out what's happened. But I can't say that it didn't affect me. Like, it was rough.
Yeah. Do they offer counseling services for jurors?
Yeah. I think, I don't remember. They gave us a packet with information. They'll provide counseling if we seek it.
Yeah. Anything that you want to add?
Well, a lot of people seem to have an aversion to jury duty because while it definitely impacts your life, but it is important, and it's a new experience. If you just go in with the mindset that, well, I've never done this before, what's it like? I don't know. I think that's a better mindset to have. And again, it's an important job.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for talking here today. And I hope that life can continue as normal. Back to work this week.
Yep.
Back to normal life and watching whatever you want to watch.
That's right.
All right. Thanks so much, Nick.